Recording is in progress. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Daryl Snyder, Brandon, Abbey R.C. Fischer. Brought to you by Long Drink. Oh, wait, not yet. Brought to you by Sportstopia, the site that if you haven't checked it out, sportstopia.io. Lots of great things. RC is a contributor there, as well as one of the 7-player projection providers. He has his own unique style there in the Contrarian Edge Optimizer. We'll reference that a few times. He is the founder of ffmetrics.com. That stands for fantasyfootballmetrics.com. He's been involved full-time as a connoisseur of game film for, he'll tell you, a few moons. And he's going to tell you how yesterday he had it pegged almost to a T. 49ers were going down to a juggernaut of Cleveland. He thought that the Eagles probably were going to go down to the Jets. And he just had it all figured out. And that's why we have him on this show. Welcome, RC. How are you doing?
The reverse of all of that. I'm doing good, but then the reverse of everything else that you said,
Okay. We have to be
including I need a
totally
short
transparent
drink
there.
and
I
everything
thought
else.
I'd throw you out. I thought that maybe your text was you told me to parlay the money lines of Cleveland and the Jets, and then you said Buffalo was going to play it close, and if it wasn't for a couple of decisions by Tyrod there on the goal line, they would have probably had the third biggest upset of the day. But before we get into tonight, it's a good game. It's Dallas and those Chargers. We had some interesting things happening again. I know you're probably going to say once we think we have it all figured out, we don't really have it figured out. But go ahead. I'm going to do what I love to do, and people don't believe me. I'm going to mute for a moment. It's all yours.
Once we think we have it all figured out, we don't. That's the summary of Sunday. When I saw that the Jets had already had one of their corners down and out, DJ Reed, and then when confirmation came across that Sauce Gardner was out, I thought this is going to be what a break for the Eagles. This is going to be this for Philadelphia. And it was just one of those weeks. There's usually a couple weeks like this during the season where absolutely nothing makes sense. All of the top teams that were fantastic last week we talked about, man, here Philadelphia's got it together and the 49ers are dominant, and now the Bengals have finally gotten it together. All the teams that I would consider the legit title chasers. 1 week later, the Bengals are lucky they didn't lose to Seattle. San Francisco lost. I mean, they could have won quite easily. One of the worst penalties at the end of a game. The number one case state's evidence they should use in the off season to get those penalties video reviewed, especially like in the last 5 minutes of a game or something, because that the penalties literally cost some teams their undefeated seasons or wins, and obviously it's going to matter later. One win means the difference between wild card, no wild card, first place in your division, no first place. So, but the Eagles played right with the Jet, whether penalties or not, or injuries or what have you. The Eagles played right with the Jets. The 49ers played right with the Browns. Bengals played right with Seattle. Obviously, the Bills played right down with the Giants. A lot of those teams are suffered injuries. The Eagles had some injuries in game. It's just when you think you got it figured out, the beauty of the NFL, there's going to be a curveball.
Yeah, that's big injuries on the 49ers side, but I would think that Cincinnati, Seattle was probably not as big of a surprise. Seattle's playing well. They gave Detroit their only loss at Detroit, and they've got a good team. I like the receivers, Kenneth Walker, But going on to that penalty, yeah, I think the problem with that, they tried that review on the interference after that blatant missed call, right, in the playoffs that cost the Rams or somebody, and then it was such a fiasco. The officials were afraid to call, right, interference. But now that play, I mean, when you saw it, to give the referees the benefit of the doubt, it looked like he came across, right, but when we saw it on replay, I mean, it looked like he came across and hit the head or the neck with the helmet, but he really got the shoulder. And I know they're trying to protect the players, obviously, with that call. It was huge. 49ers still, I mean, they had the field goal, and just that Moody, is it that they
Mm-hmm.
redrafted high out of Michigan? They had a lot of confidence in him. And I mean, it comes
Mhm.
out of that. I thought Cleveland played like the way they had to play to win, and that's their defense just, reared back, and it helped. McCaffrey went out. It helped that Debo. So everything's set up nicely,
Well,
but it
they
was
lost
tough.
Trent Williams. I mean, that's the one of the common strands of some of the top teams falling. Eagles lost Lane Johnson in game. 49ers lost Trent Williams in game. I mean, when you lose your ace left tackle, that's only second to the quarterback in importance in the game functions. So, not saying that Cleveland didn't play a good game or anything else, but it was a perfect storm, and San Francisco still should have won that game. But obviously, fact is they didn't. What was strange about it, like in the Bengals and um, San Francisco, the Bengals went right down as soon as they got the ball. They went right down the field on Seattle. I thought they were going to blow Seattle's doors off the way that the offense was going for Cincinnati, and San Francisco went right down the field, right on Cleveland the first drive. I'm like, okay, well that exposes this Cleveland defense a little for
Yeah,
the schedule
McCaffrey
that they
was most
played.
of that drive, right?
Yeah,
I mean, he
yeah,
was up the middle, a little pass up the middle. I thought the same thing. I played McCaffrey, was super expensive in DFS and very low owned. And after that drive, Cleveland
then Will,
adjusted,
yeah,
and he was
if
nothing.
Williams gets hurt, McCaffrey gets hurt, Debo gets hurt, it starts raining. I mean, a convergence of a lot of things came together and cost them that game. That no slap against Cleveland, who played well, but that's what makes this a beautiful, maddening pursuit. Is trying to figure out what all these games mean. It's like, yeah, look back at Cleveland's who they played, who they've beaten, who they've humiliated leading into the San Francisco game. I didn't think it was that impressive when you look back with it and use the context of the strength of their opponents, which leads into tonight's game. I'm trying to figure out what I really think about Dallas, and I can't get my arms around it fully, but my lean is there's it's not as good as we all think because they crushed three of the worst offenses in the league. And then when they played anything that wasn't the worst offense in the league, they crushed the Giants and they crushed the Jets and they crushed Mac Jones and the Patriots. When they played Arizona, they got physically handled. And then when they played the 49ers, they got physically handled. So what Dallas team, how do you interpret this Dallas team? Is it really that good, or is it secretly bad and getting ready to get exposed tonight by the Chargers? But then the Chargers are one of the most head scratching teams in the league for the last couple of years. Just when you think they're good, they fall apart, and just when they start falling apart, you try to bury them. Then all of a sudden, Justin Herbert rises them up.
Well, I think they they have a way to keep every game close. So I really think that this game, I mean, they like to go 4th and 2 on their own 20, which most teams don't. And those sort of plays tend to keep the other teams in the game. But Brandon, before we shift off, I know you're a big fan of the 49ers. What's your thoughts on that game? And I mean, it's because it has Stanford ties to it, right? What do you think?
Well,
That
since you
are they done for the season with those two injuries, or anything gonna?
no, no, I was I agree with you guys. That penalty shouldn't have been called. It was it was a clean hit. The field goal, they shouldn't have missed the field goal either. That's a chip shot for those guys. I am, worried about McCaffrey. That's taken out of the game. He's injury prone, always has been. That's going to hurt him. That was Purdy's first time to really go after a game to win it at the end. Did okay, but they shouldn't have been in that position to start with. They're a much better team than that.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Elijah Mitchell was actually activated for that game, but what they're going to—he's so physical, McCaffrey. I mean, you can see how he gets hurt, right? He's really a linebacker and a halfback, and he tries to do. I saw a thing. He idolizes Bruce Lee, so he's trying to train his body to be that physical and punish the other players. But the problem is the other players, even though he's good size for running back, they are monstrous in size. So sometimes that force of putting your hand through the board and breaking the board when the board's like this thick and it weighs 360 pounds and it's a linebacker or whatever they are. But yeah,
since you mentioned Stanford, let's give some kudos to the Stanford Cardinal for coming back.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up.
I only had time to watch the first half of that game. I don't know what you're talking about.
I
just
only turned on the second
it ended
half
poorly.
and it was like, and I had to go back and see that they trailed 29-0. But yeah, prime time. He's obviously experiencing all elements of the college game, and that was a great one. That wide receiver,
unbelievable catch that at the end of the game where he reached over
I gave him like almost 300 yards receiving. I mean, the guy was like
all in the second half.
Colorado knew what was coming. I don't know how they didn't. I mean, they put two guys out there, but before we shift back, if you're going to talk about college, my Notre Dame Fighting Irish played a team that has a Heisman Trophy. Last year's winner, they're undefeated. They traveled into Notre Dame, and everybody thought the line looked trappy. Notre Dame went from giving 2.5 to 3, and I did happen to watch almost all of that game, and the Irish in a runaway pummeled them. So it was. I know RC, you just on the edge of your seat for that one, but we had to get into a little Stanford Notre Dame back and forth. Puts the Irish back into at least a formidable. They still play Clemson. I mean, they got a crazy schedule, but
still play Stanford. Yeah.
The what?
They still play Stanford.
Well, like I say, they don't have anybody left, but really,
be nice.
I look forward to watching those games Clemson, 3 months from now.
Yeah, but RC, anything? I mean, week 6, we saw. I mean, I was talking with Brandon. We were going over it. I mean, Lions, you have to like the way they played. The only loss is that home loss to Seattle. Eagles can't write them off after that. The Jets defense. I saw Rodgers looks like he's going to be activated next week. He was out on the field throwing passes, and his Achilles without crutches. But joking on that one. That was kind of amazing to see him out there. I thought he was just balancing himself, but he was actually moving his feet. But before we flip over to this and get more focused, who's your top 5 in the NFL after what you just witnessed, not counting tonight, because both these teams tonight are definitely in consideration. So who's your top 5 without including Dallas and the Chargers?
I would say it is definitely very fluid because even when you think you've got these teams pegged, like take the Buffalo Bills, for example, after 4 weeks, after the Miami win, all of my computer models would have been saying, hey, this is the best team in the league, not just because they beat Miami, but they were trouncing teams. Everything looked right. And then all of a sudden They lose their top cornerback. They lose their heart and soul of their defense in Matt Milano. And now all of a sudden, Buffalo is very pedestrian, almost lost to the Giants in one of the worst games you could spotlight on a Sunday night football. I mean, it ended up being an exciting game and exciting finish, but just to watch that play by play last night I was glad the Astros game was on so I could watch that more.
Yeah.
If I
At one
if
time, I thought the Astros were going to have more runs total that game than when it was 6-0 on the other side. But yeah.
Whoever we could talk about as the best 5 teams out there, there's a curveball that has just come in or can come in to completely take them out of the mix. If the 49ers lose McCaffrey and Trent Williams, and I don't think they're losing Trent Williams for any long stretch of time, then my thoughts on San Francisco start to come down. I think the team that I think is set up to be the best team in the league that can beat the 49ers, the Chiefs, if they stay healthy, relatively healthy. To me, the best team in the NFL is the Cincinnati Bengals. But
I
if
I didn't even have them in my
calf
top
goes,
5. But
if Burrow's calf goes, they're not even a playoff team.
is that number 1 for you?
I would say if I had a free bet and you give me $1 million if I was right, and it didn't cost me anything to play, and I had to take a team to win the Super Bowl, it would probably be the Bengals. I'd think about the 49ers, but it'd be between the Bengals and the 49ers.
So there's 1, 2. Who's 3, 4, 5?
I'm having to sit back and wonder where the Jets belong in that discussion. We've just watched a 3-game stretch where Zach Wilson has outplayed Patrick Mahomes in a game that the Jets, by all rights, should have won. Speaking of very late game nonsense penalties, then they turn around and Zach Wilson outplays Russell Wilson. Then they turn around.
Count.
Well, I mean, it doesn't count, but listen to the list of quarterbacks. Zach
It's
Wilson
like
is outplaying
Stanford.
head to head. And I know, and it's not because Zach Wilson is, lighting it up per se, but he outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that game against.
That counts. Yeah, that counts.
He then outplayed Russell Wilson, which is no great feat, except for who would have thought we would be saying that, 3 months ago. And then he just outplayed Jalen Hurts, partly because Jalen Hurts did it to himself, and Zach Wilson didn't. Jalen Hurts made the mistakes you would expect Zach Wilson to make, not Jalen Hurts. So
yeah,
the Jets are technically could have been winners of 3 in a row, beating Mahomes, beating Jalen Hurts, beating the 2 Super Bowl teams, and beating the Philadelphia Eagles without their secondary, which is the strength of their team. Plus, they also beat the Buffalo Bills when the Buffalo Bills were at their full strength. I mean, you want to talk about quality wins. Who has better quality wins if you throw the Kansas City one in there that wasn't a win? Who's playing better than the Jets?
Yeah, I would agree.
And they're not at full strength.
A stat and it has to still be going. They have the longest streak on defense not allowing a 300-yard passer. Unless, I don't think Hurts made it. He threw 3 interceptions. The amount, if you count the run going back the other way, he probably had 300 yards and given up. But yeah, their defense, I mean, and if you look at Super Bowl teams, I'm not going to, I mean, you got Wilson to Wilson. You have obviously the running back now that's getting super healthy. This was the 2nd game in a row, right? Breesy, Hall there, tight end. And I mean, Rodgers sitting there in the wings. Wouldn't that be something if Wilson goes on such a roll that he. I mean, the money they gave Rodgers, I don't know how that
Yeah,
happens, but
yeah, they would never do that. And then
yeah.
Detroit's sitting there going, we might be the best team
Well, I've
in
got
the
your one, two,
NFL.
three is Detroit 4. I need 5. I'm gonna ask Brandon. So this isn't gonna hold you. It's not gonna win you a million.
Yeah,
It's not free. This
Detroit
is
in
just
that group, and then one of probably Baltimore or Cleveland would be
you
my
gotta pick. You
fifth,
can't
or
be
Miami.
softy. It can't
It'll
just say
be
I'll take the
Miami.
field.
I'll
Huh?
take Miami as fifth when they get Jalen Ramsey back. That's going to change the game for Miami.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, Brandon.
Since
Can't
we're
count
going,
Stanford. Stanford's not in the NFL. Who's your top 5?
my thought, I would take Detroit. I like Philadelphia, even
Is
after
this in
getting.
order? 1 and 2?
Um, not, not no. I'll put the Dolphins number 2, Detroit number 1 right now. Uh,
Who's your 3? Philly?
yeah, Philly.
Well, he's fading his 49ers.
Well, I'm just not sure about them now. I'll put them number 5, and then
Who's
I'll take
4?
4 is going to be Kansas City.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you leave them out, I would have snapped them up. I'm going to go. You left out RC's number 1, the Bengals. You can't count Burrow and the Bengals out. So I'll take number 1. I'm going to go KC number 1. I like Detroit just doesn't have enough experience. I'm still going to like the Eagles at number 2. Cincinnati 3, Buffalo 4, and Miami 5.
Okay, since we're going top 5, RC, how about quarterbacks? Who do you like?
Let me back up and make one quick statement on the 49ers in this discussion of top fives. And I think it is an interesting football slash psychology study in that everyone the articles and the little bits of talk show conversation I've seen today is, well, it was only a matter of time. The 49ers, you knew Brock Purdy couldn't hold up. Brock Purdy's a fraud. We knew this. Is the guy loses one game in like 14 starts, and they really should have won. And immediately the entirety of football that's been just waiting to be right. They've been wrong about Brock Purdy for 15 straight games that he's played, just waiting for his one time that he was going to lose. And then now everybody's selling everything San Francisco, and San Francisco can't win, and Purdy can't do it, and he's just to say every time they talk about Brock Purdy, they're like, for a 7th round pick, it doesn't even matter, and it shouldn't even matter anymore where somebody's picked, because the NFL draft is so screwed up, and the picks are always wrong. When we go back in retrospect, the better players are coming from the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds, but all this morning, everybody rushed right to Brock Purdy doesn't belong, and we knew this was going to happen. Like, we're talking about
Yeah,
top teams.
that's
We don't even have
crazy.
We don't
Wasn't
even
his
have.
fault.
I don't think any
Yeah,
of us had San Francisco as a top team, but their resume should make them the best team in this discussion with Brock Purdy, because they don't lose with Brock Purdy, and then they just lost, but that was a very winnable game. It should have been a win for them.
Yeah.
So outside of that, the best 5 quarterbacks, if I was a general manager, if I could get 5 quarterbacks at some mock draft or start up at franchise and get to pick my quarterbacks off another team, just purely on talent. I mean, if it was for selling tickets and getting attention and all that, I might say Patrick Mahomes is number one. But I think in actual play, I think the best quarterback, I believe, is Joe Burrow, is the best pure quarterback in the NFL, arguable with Patrick Mahomes. With them as a 1-2, I would probably Josh Allen. Justin Herbert is arguably more physically more gifted than either of those two guys. And if he was with a real head coach, God knows what he'd be achieving. So those guys are like 1A, 1B, 1C. Josh Allen has to be on that list. And
How
I
about
guess
Tua?
Jalen Hurt. No, Tua doesn't belong on that. Tua's in a
You're
perfect
missing one. I
spot.
get to go next. I thought
You
for
go.
sure you were going to bring him out. You can't add him. Don't even. No.
I'm
I
not
know.
gonna add. I'm not gonna add Mac Jones. You go right ahead.
You're not going to add who?
Mac Jones,
I just stole him right out from under me.
high
Close.
first round draft pick. I mean, we have since Brock Purdy's mentioned as a 7th round draft pick every time. I will say first round draft pick Mac Jones.
There was another first round draft pick, selected number 2, going to
Zach
the
Wilson.
Houston Texans. Again. Did he win again?
Houston.
Talk about the surprise team. If you wanted to put a team that I think people are going to start to like, you look at what's happening with a rookie coach, and I know you've talked about him a lot. I thought for sure you were just going to throw him right into that mix, but I mean, those other guys are all pro, right? I mean, Mahomes, probably future Hall of Famers with Mahomes and probably Burrow already out. I mean, so it's hard, but I'm definitely watching Stroud. He threw his first interception, right? He went and finally threw one, but he didn't let. I was interested to see if that affected him, but I would say I'd put him in the conversation. I mean, it's hard. I'm not a Herbert fan. Herbert. I mean, he has receivers. I don't know if it's maybe because of his coaching. If I had to, I would take Stroud over him. I don't know. There's some things I know he lost Big Mike, and we'll talk about that tonight. But Stroud to me is the future, right? He's a Hurts, but I think maybe he could become better with what I've seen so far. He's really smart in his selection. But Brandon, you started this contest. I didn't need to jump ahead. I would probably go, other than Haber, I would throw, I've called him 18 different things. How do you pronounce his name so I pronounce it right?
Herbert.
Herbert, like Sherbert? Herbert. Okay.
Yeah. University.
I go Mahomes, Burrow. I like Allen a little bit over Burrow just because he can still tuck it and run, and Burrow, I guess maybe I'm thinking he might not do that as much because of his calf. Hurts definitely. And then I'll replace Sherbert, Mr. Herbert, with Mr. Stroud. Who are you taking? Can't be a Stanford guy.
Is there one?
There's some.
I'm going Mahomes, Allen,
Tanner McKee,
Herbert. Oh yeah, Tanner
Davis, Mills,
and Mills. You got me there.
Who was it?
Tanner McKee and Davis Mills.
or his 4 and 5. Write it down. You just said it.
No, I didn't. I'll throw Lamar in there for consideration.
Yeah, he's definitely a prototype. What teams are looking for, runner, and I don't know if he's as good a passer. Still hasn't proven that to me. He can definitely run, and without Andrews, I don't know where he'd be. But let's shift. We have a game tonight, and according to what I'm hearing and early indications with RC, he thinks this is going to be a exposure or a non-exposure of Dallas against
I think we had
Those
a high scoring game. I don't know what the line is, but
every time we say that, which we've said it the last three, I'm
14-10.
texting RC and saying, "Man, I should have played the kickers in the defense."
Well, there 50. The over is 50.5.
Yeah, Micah Parsons is in there, and Bosa playing tonight. What do you think, RC? This is where you've studied. I know you haven't been to sleep yet, studying the film of this game all night. What do you think? Give us
It's, it's funny
your
when you were
deep.
saying talking about the defenses and playing. I should have played the defenses and the kicker. I was looking at it this morning. The top point per game kicker in fantasy right now, which does not have a radical, scoring, like not some historic scoring. Just if you took the number one, which there's two of them that are tied, Brett Maher and Jake Elliott, they would be the number 18 scoring point per game PPR running back in the league right now. And the Dallas Cowboys are the number one scoring defense special teams. Their points per game I'm using a Fantasy Pros' scoring system for such things. The Dallas Cowboys defense would be the number 12 scoring running back points per game on the season. So we joke about the kickers and the defense, but there's real opportunities coming there because of matchups, but also the if Sunday's telling me anything from a fantasy perspective, it's the further degradation and decline of the running back performances for fantasy football. I mean, there's like when you take McCaffrey out of the mix, there's not who's the great running back out there.
Kyrene Williams has to be a surprise.
I mean, we're in a world where Kyron Williams and Zach Moss are probably the two best running backs in the NFL right now.
Right.
And I would have told you from a scout. I mean, I should just retire or I should quit. Retire is too good for what I would say. Zach Moss is one of the worst running backs that I scouted when he was drafted, and he's kicked around the league. And I thought Kyron Williams was never going to make it in the NFL.
Well, he's
And
a
here
he's a
they
Notre
are.
Dame guy, so I
And
think he
here
would
they are, the
eventually
two of the
rise.
best five running backs in fantasy football right now.
I mean, a
So
Shane. It was a shame. A Shane got hurt because I'd have been interested to see with his speed. Moser. I mean, he had another. I mean that offense is just built for him, huh? So
I
there
mean,
are a few.
it's a Miami thing. If Achan would be on another team, if he was on the Dallas Cowboys, he'd be sitting with Deuce Vaughn on the bench or returning kicks. So some of it is the fortune of where they wind up. But to start looking at this game tonight, the one interesting stat that I've been debating with my handicapping cohorts for this game, but it kind of leads into the bigger game is the teams that have played the San Francisco 49ers the week prior are like 1-19 in their last 20 games the following week, or 2-20. It depends on what you want to drag into them playing exactly a week after playing San Francisco, because San Francisco is so physical, is the theory that they're beat up the following week and they don't perform very well. So that would be Dallas in this game tonight, coming off of a San Francisco beating. And I'm not talking about just generally playing San Francisco the week before. You're 1 out of 20 likely to lose your next game according to the recent trend. So Dallas is in that circle. Chargers are coming off a bye. Both teams, when I look at what they've done so far this year, it's a mystery. The Chargers should have opened up the season beating Miami. They blew it. The Chargers are in every game for good and for bad. Teams they should be putting away, they hang with. Teams that you think that they don't belong with, they hang with. Brandon Staley's a conundrum. Kellen Moore, I don't know if he's a genius or not a genius, but he's got an axe to grind in tonight's game. I'm sure we're going to see some plays out of his back pocket tonight that he saved special to embarrass Dallas. So there's a lot of ancillary data and things that kind of side with the Chargers in this game, plus them being at home, even though I'm sure there's going to be quite a is it this that Dallas or is this the Chargers? This that Dallas tonight?
Mercedes Stadium is where the Chargers play, which is where the
Uh,
Rams play. Levi is
that the
where the
Char That's right.
49ers play.
It's at the Chargers, but they're getting points, so they're the home dog.
Right.
Yeah.
So being off a bye, playing at home, so there's no travel. They've been in place for a while. Dallas coming off to San Francisco. I am really interested to see how Dallas is going to respond in this game because if they lose as a favorite, as an assumed to win this game team, all hell's going to break loose in Dallas after they got whooped by San Francisco. And if they turn around and lose to Kellen, if they lose to the Chargers and it's because of an offensive explosion and Kellen Moore had some great plays that everybody's going to see on a solo night game, and then it's not going to be too crazy for Jerry Jones and everybody else to go, wait a minute, we got rid of Kellen Moore for this team that just fell to 3-3 and got beat by a up and down Chargers team. And if Dallas struggles on offense against a bad defense and then the Chargers blow through what's supposed to be Dallas's best feature, their defense, and it's done by the offensive coordinator who they just fired, Dallas has a long staring in the mirror to do about itself if that's what ends up happening. Subsequently, if they go and throttle the Chargers, then it's going to be like all is fine. San Francisco game was a blip. We're fine. I don't know that the Dallas Cowboys are fine. And I think
Yeah, I
there's
don't.
a lot of little side things that favor the Chargers in this game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the only way they blow them out, and it would have to be a couple pick sixes, maybe Micah. I mean, I think Chargers are going to be in the game. Obviously, the line 1.5, Dallas favored. So Las Vegas likes it to be close. Is Eckler playing? He's probably ready,
Yes.
isn't he?
Yep.
Okay. That, that
Chargers are
definitely.
Chargers are healthy. Dallas is healthy for the
Well, Mike
most
Williams
part.
isn't back, is he?
Mike Williams is gone for the year.
Yeah. Okay. So when you say that, so you got Allen, Quentin Johnson, Palmer, and whoever else, and then Everett and Parham. Is he healthy? Parham got injured
Yeah,
in the
he
one
he
that.
practiced in full this last practice. Had the bye week. Sprained his wrist in the game week 4 game, but he
And
was
then
practicing during the week and then got into full practice their last practice. So I assume he's good to go.
who's I got CC Lamb, Gallup, Ferguson tight end. Who's the guy they brought over from the
Cooks,
Texans? Cook, yeah.
Cooks.
Okay. On the you say everybody's healthy, even any DBs out, safeties, any linemen?
Chargers have a safety out, but it's not a key game changing, game turning thing.
Well, let's go to the quarterback then. I talked about Sherbert, Herbert, and Mr. Prescott. Who's going to win that battle against the opposing Ds? Who do you favor there?
I mean, I will always ride with Justin Herbert, so my money would be on him. Although this is another scenario where if Dallas does lose and they're clunky on offense, this will be Dak Prescott facing the current number 32 pass defense in the league. And if they can't take advantage of that, then there's going to be some serious hell to pay in the media this upcoming week. But I just don't think Dak really has his. I don't think Dak's one of the top 15 quarterbacks in the league anymore. And they run a system from Mike McCarthy that's built to run the ball. And so that's what they're going to do, even though what you want to take advantage of is the Chargers pass defense. I don't know that Dallas has really got it built to take advantage of the opposing pass defense like they might have several years ago.
Seems like he
So
was taping his thumb too. Seems like Prescott's never really that hand injury. Did you see it in the game last time? They were taping it or whatever. I don't know if he's ever fully gotten well from that. I mean, he's got CC Lamb, and Cook was a guy I was thinking that I couldn't remember. Gallup. Am I missing another receiver? Who's a wide receiver for? Turbin or guy?
Turpin and Tolbert, but they're not anything
They're
special.
out there ways.
The
Herbert's going to be taped up too on his left hand.
Yeah. Dak's 5 games this year, 5 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, 212 yards per game passing, the lowest in his career since 2017. Part of
But
it
they
is
played Jets and 49ers, right?
Part of it is they blew out some teams and didn't need to throw the ball. But when they've needed to throw the ball, there hasn't been any great, amazing numbers being racked within that. When they got down to Arizona, they couldn't pull themselves back into it. When they got down to San Francisco, they couldn't pull themselves back into it.
Yeah, I mean, coming off that shellacking by the 49ers, it's Jerry Jones. You're right. If they get shellacked again on national TV by their ex-offensive coordinator, there will be rumors in not so joyfulville. But so you're giving
a lot of pressure
Herbert
on Dallas tonight.
Yeah, I think. I mean, again, this game, if any game so far, we've liked the over on some of these without the offensive talent. But I'm going to give, as you said, Herbert a bump there over Prescott. I think he's, even though they're both, I guess Prescott isn't officially favoring that. Herbert, that's non-throwing hand. So Eckler Pollard.
For the price and the contrarianness of it, Dak is probably a good play, within the multiple lineups, just because, I mean, they are facing the bottom barrel pass defense, and Dak is not dead. He's just not like, oh, this is Dak's going to go for 303 touchdowns. You just know it. We haven't seen that Dak in a long time.
Well, the game script is they could be trailing, so you will be throwing it more, right? Bringing us to the running backs. Both these guys are out of the backfield, so they're almost like big time receiver potential. Eckler, when before he got hurt, was, I don't know the number, you know it better, but he was getting a lot of targets. And Pollard can be the same. I thought he would really, and I don't know the stats, maybe he's performed better, but Zeke left and Zeke had a touchdown yesterday. That was interesting, but I thought this would be a coming out party for him. Hasn't been what I thought. Again, it may be because they faced the 49ers and the Jets and that vaunted at the time Arizona defense. But what's your thoughts at the running backs?
Well, there's Christian McCaffrey, there's Austin Eckler, there's Kyron Williams, and then there's everybody else in a paper bag, and you can pull them out of the paper bag, and they're probably going to get 15 carries for 40 to 60 yards, and then you pray that somehow one of them scores a touchdown to make it worth your fantasy week. We've lost Derrick Henry. We've lost Jonathan Taylor. We've lost Saquon Barkley. We've lost Josh Jacobs. We lost Tony Pollard. They're all just guys all getting 15 carries for 50 plus or minus yards. There's no more guys. The only guy who's racking up consistent 100-yard games outside of that is Zach Moss, and he's not even the starter for his own team. Like and Kyron Williams is the other one. Like I don't even recognize this NFL, but that shift is on. You would think that this would be a Pollard opportunity with a an average run defense to face, but running backs have just been so bland. I would have thought Isaiah Pacheco would have destroyed the Broncos the other night based on the matchups and all that, but he couldn't even get out of his own way that night. So just running backs seem to be finding themselves right back. The starters, the Mixons, the Barkleys, the James Cooks, they all find themselves to about 40 to 70 yards. And then if they don't have a touchdown, you're like, what the heck? How did I get this fantasy performance? So Pollard has fallen into that pattern. Eckler has not. So I think you have to treat Eckler like Christian McCaffrey 2.0. You got to give him his respect, and he needs to be unquestioned in every game.
Yeah, he's probably a lock and load on all the. I can't see him not being in the optimal tonight in this game script. He could definitely get 20 to 30 or more fantasy points. Pollard, same thing. I mean, it seems like with Bosa in there, he's playing right.
I think is cleared to play. There's some question, but I think he's going to play.
Makes a difference in that defense, but we're going to give the edge to Eckler. So we got two Chargers, quarterback and running back, with an edge, even though the line is the other way. Are they making it up on the receiving end? Is this CeeDee Lamb, Gallup, Ferguson, Cook better than Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, Palmer, Everett, Parham, and somebody by your back pocket I'm probably not even thinking of on that Charger receiving core? What do you think about the receivers?
Correct. I would think for the money, well, they may be priced about the same. If they are, you can't. I would never bet against Keenan Allen. You can bet against CeeDee Lamb, but he's about due because I think he might have had 2 down games in a row, and then he's out there complaining mildly in the media. And usually when that happens, they get overfed the next week. So Lamb and Keenan Allen, you can't go wrong with. I think on the Dallas side, I've been saying it for a couple of weeks, and I knew it wasn't going to be true most likely against the 49ers last week. Michael Gallup is the one on the Dallas Cowboys that's starting to show something. There's something trying to happen between Dak and Gallup. It's just the games. 2 games ago, it was the Patriots game that they just blew out the opponent. So there was no reason to. Dallas hasn't hardly run a normal offense this season except for one game, and that's against Arizona. They've had big defensive blowouts in 3 other games, and then they got blown out by San Francisco. So trying to find them in a normal game, which should be tonight, there's only really the Arizona game, but that's only a sample size of one. I think within the games that have been in the early parts of games and in the Arizona game, Michael Gallup looks really good. Michael Gallup has been talented. He's a couple years removed now from his ACL. He just looks like he's an event waiting to have a big game, a breakout moment, a guy that other teams aren't necessarily planning heavily on, and then he could take advantage of that. So CeeDee Lamb you can't go wrong with, but Gallup is the one on Dallas that's trying to. Looks like he's right on the edge of being able to have a big night.
Is there any flypaper defensive backs that are going to cover one side or the other, or because the Chargers ranked last, there's not really a factor back there?
Uh, there's nobody's gonna take out any of the Dallas receivers from the Chargers coverage. So it'll be pretty easy to work CeeDee Lamb. They'll probably try to keep everything in front of them, type of defense, zone defense. They'll try to pressure and play it that way because they can't man up um, in coverage that well. On the flip side, I mean, Dallas has Stephon Gilmore, but he's not going to cover Keenan Allen most likely because Keenan Allen works the slot, and Keenan Allen's kind of like Cooper Kupp. He just gets it no matter what anybody tries to do, like with Travis Kelce or Cooper. They're just always open and catching passes. So Keenan Allen should be fine. Gallup is the X factor for me for Dallas. Dallas keeps. I just have a feeling Dallas is going to go try to win this. Going to try to start out winning this game by running the ball heavy to establish their physical dominance and to keep Herbert off the field, and because that's what Mike McCarthy wants to do. So Dallas has been doing a very annoying thing to me that Pollard is starting and playing the majority of snaps, but they're putting Rico Dowdle in way too often in way too many key spots. And I just mentioned that for DFS purposes that he'll get some touches in this game and could get a surprise touchdown. Like I've seen him have Pollard out on, near the goal line and in the red zone and have Dowdle in like he's some kind of great playmaker.
Yeah, good point. I've seen that, witnessed that as well. Eckler, because he's coming back, still can't rule out Kelly, right? Coming in and having some touches. I think Eckler's going to get.
Kelly will share some of the work theoretically. But this being such a big game and Eckler having been out is theoretically fresh, and this is really a huge pivotal game for both of these teams. I think there'll be a lot more Eckler than there might normally be. I don't know that they'll get as cute as splitting it up and trying to keep Eckler fresh. This is a must-win, all hands on deck, potential huge Austin Eckler night.
I like it. What about, you talked about Gilmore? Is he going to cover Johnson or Palmer? Probably Palmer.
Probably Palmer will just stay on one side and let whatever comes his way. Palmer is a very shaky wide receiver to play. Not highly productive, not very athletic, decent enough hands. He's not that, to me, he's not that exciting for DFS under normal circumstances. Quentin Johnston is due for something good to happen, even though he's a very flawed receiver. I'm sure they will try to do something with him tonight, or he could get lost or forgotten in coverage potentially and have he's a one big play. He could have one catch and be in the optimal lineup because it was a 50-yard touchdown. The biggest X factor, the biggest reach sleeper player in this, and he's kind of been hidden off the radar because we saw his emergence in week 4, then they went on a week 5 bye, so it's just kind of not even really, I don't even really see it being talked about. But in week 4, do you know who the starting running back was for the Chargers on the very first play of the game?
Biller?
It was TCU rookie wide receiver Darius Davis was the starting running back. And what they did was they put him in at tailback. I can't remember if they play action faked him the ball and then he just kind of bled out for like a bubble screen. But he was their very first play of the game. Then the third play of the game, if I may be getting the what number play it was wrong, but it was in the first series. The third play of the game, he was in the backfield again as the single setback tailback. They handed him the ball, and he had a 50-yard run. So 2 of the first 3 plays in their last game, Darius Davis was at tailback and had designed plays for him. He ended up playing about 15 snaps in the game. Like most NFL teams, they install this package, this creativity package that works right off the bat, and then they stop using it and go right back to their normal stuff. But early on, there was a lot of Darius Davis being used in very unique ways. Then they kind of came back to it a little bit later, but they didn't give fully into it. But I think he had 3 carries for 50 yards, one of them being the 50-yard run, and had 2 or 3 catches on screen type passes. I have thought since the Mike Williams injury that he is the one that could be the difference maker, the wrinkle for the Chargers offense, where it's not a bunch of slower, bigger outside wide receivers. Like you could send Palmer and Quentin Johnston deep on the outside, and Quentin Johnston can't catch, and Josh Palmer's too slow to get open. But you could send those guys deep on as mercenaries and then just let Darius Davis, like what they do with Eckler, but you could take a break from Eckler and then use Darius Davis in the same way and just set them up those bubble screens that you have and just get him the ball and let him go. He's a top return man from college. He's been a top return man in the preseason and regular season. You just give him the ball on a simple play and let him go. I say all that because they did nothing like that for 3 weeks, their first 3 games, and then their last game, week 4, they were all into it. They had all these creative plays, and that was the first game, I think, that Mike Williams was gone, and then they had this creative package for Darius Davis. So he
Makes
definitely
sense.
needs to be included in DFS plays.
Yeah, especially with Kellen. You said, you know, who
Yeah.
scored last night on a similar type play that we had targeted. That was a key touchdown for Buffalo last night, right? You see who that was? Same sort of play out of the backfield.
Oh, yeah. That's what I wish they would do that every week with Deontay Hardy. It's sitting there for the
Right.
taking.
I thought about you when I saw it happen. I'm like thinking, there he is, Hardy the Darty. But yeah, Davis could be. I mean, everybody's going to be jamming tonight in the Millie Maker. They're going to, I mean, Herbert, Eckler, Allen, CC, Gallup. So it's going to be hard to get different. I doubt there's going to be a lot of defenses. I mean, Dallas maybe a scoop and score. Parsons comes in and disrupts like he can. They don't seem, since they lost that DB that they didn't think would be that big, but he was a leader. Doesn't seem like Parsons has been as disruptive, but so you may play a sprinkle of Dallas, just hoping that he causes a scoop and score, pick 6. But kickers, I don't. But Dallas maybe. I mean, if you're going to play a kicker, I wouldn't. I would play maybe the Charger kicker, just because Dallas may stop, but have the tendency to stop them a little deeper. But the Chargers like to go for it, so I mean,
it's not totally crazy that a lineup or two might have the Chargers into it, because since week 1, so from week 2 on, the Chargers have been putting pressure on the quarterback at a higher. Dallas has really not been that defense, I think, that we have in our minds since the week 1 bludgeoning of the Giants. The numbers have been good, but they haven't been. I thought they were going to be off the charts, but the Chargers are actually putting more pressure, getting more quarterback hits than the Cowboys have been in the last couple
interesting.
weeks. And Khalil Mack had 5 sacks in a game here a couple weeks ago. The Chargers, Brandon Staley's not a bad defensive mind sometimes. they sometimes come up with some really smart game plans against like Jacksonville in the first half of the playoffs last year when they picked off Lawrence 4 times in about 4 minutes. They'll play some aggressive man-to-man and dare the other team to throw, and they'll try to apply pressure and to try to rattle their cage that way. And sometimes it works. Sometimes this Chargers defense can be really slick, um, creating opportunity for fantasy scoring. So Dallas has a good offensive line, so I don't know that it's gonna necessarily work tonight. But Bosa's set to play. They can get cute and creative, and Dak has been a I don't want to say he's been a turnover machine since last year, but I think he led the league in interceptions last year, and he's averaging near 1 a game this year. So I wouldn't rule out the Chargers come across with a pick six in the
That's
game tonight.
contrarian, yeah. And Bosa hasn't played in all of them, and I like it when he's in. He's definitely like his brother. He's aggressive. How about tight ends before we close her down? You got Ferguson and Everett and Parham. Any thoughts that those guys may play into some DFS stuff tonight?
Both of these defenses are average against the tight end, so there's nothing jumping off the um, computer screen with that, and both of these teams' tight ends are very mediocre. So there's mediocre defenses against the tight end facing mediocre tight ends. Jake Ferguson has been seeing more targets of late. When when they decide it's a Gerald Everett game, he can get a 7 catch for 60-yard game with the best of them. Parham's usually only used to get a touchdown. So, I mean, Parham could score a touchdown in this game and still not be in the top
Right.
10 of fantasy scores because he'll have 1 catch for 10 yards and a touchdown. So I don't see any breakout performers, but if one was going to happen as a shock, it might be Everett because every once in a while he jumps up with like he's a quasi wide receiver.
I like that. I've seen him utilized in that role as well, and with Williams out, I mean it's even more possible. So the way I just checked the boxes, including the opportunity for a defensive touchdown, I'll say it could go both ways, which is the only way. I mean, if you have a defensive score, but you end up still giving up 28 points, looks like it's, what is it, 51, Brandon? What'd you say?
It's 50.5.
Yeah, so
Wow.
they're projecting 20, 26, 24. Still a lot of points. So defense to be optimal, they'd have to have a lot of sacks, some interceptions beyond the scoop and score, because that's just going to get you 6. You start out with 10 possible. But I like the other way where you put in some offensive guys. I think Gallup's going to be under owned. Do you have the optimizer up to see what his ownership is? It's got to be not anywhere near CC or Keenan.
Do just under 14% is captain.
That'd be a good play.
His utility 9%.
Yeah, so there you go. You're getting different, 86% in the captain, and
I'll bet Cooks is higher by a little bit over Gallup. I'm curious.
Captain, he's at just under 14%. And 9%, just about the same as Flex. So they're pretty close.
who is it?
Cooks.
Brandon
Cook, yeah.
I was
Yeah,
wondering. I
you
mean,
like Gallup over Cook,
yeah,
right?
Cooks has not been very productive this year. He's newer with Dak, so there could be some of that to it. Gallup has been with Dak since the beginning, so I'm more for Gallup. I mean, Cooks can always have his moment. That Turpin guy. Just a one final note on some of the sleeper guys. when Dallas has been in a game or down, like the San Francisco game, when it's been a game where they're really playing to the best of their ability, playing to their playbook, playing to their whatever. Turpin only played 2 snaps in the San Francisco game. He only played 2 snaps in the Arizona game on offense. In the blowouts, he sees more snaps. So if Dallas blows out the Chargers, we might see a little more Turpin. If it's a normal game, they usually just let Turpin in for limited snaps, and he's been productive on a limited snap. He played 2 snaps against San Francisco and caught a touchdown pass.
Very contrarian, just
So they
less than 50% on.
they try to get him. He's like that Trey Tucker we've been trying to get going on a DFS, and he almost did it again this weekend against the Patriots. Trey Tucker was sniffing around multiple big plays and touchdown opportunities. Turpin's kind of in that realm where he might get a couple of plays, but his couple of plays, one of them could be a big time play. But that's where Darius Davis is very similar, probably better of a talent, and is going to play way more snaps and get way more opportunity than Turpin will.
What's Davis' ownership, Brandon?
We check here. Had it up a second ago.
Can't be much. Got to be like 1% or 2% or something.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
With Eckler there. What do they list him at, a receiver? Or?
Yeah, he'll be a wide receiver. He played 12 snaps their last game, and within those 12 snaps, he touched the ball 5 times on those 12 snaps. 2 catches for 16 yards. They were both, I believe, screen passes to him as a running back, and then he had 3 carries for 51 yards.
That's good. Yeah, that long run of 40, huh?
So
if you can't find him, he almost has to be invisible.
Well, what's his first name?
Darius.
D. Davis.
D-E-R.
I'm seeing a Malik.
That's Dallas.
Yeah. I had it up here a minute ago. Maybe I should put my glasses back on.
No worries. Well, we'll like to sprinkle him in. Gallup seems to be the play at the ownership. I guess you can't ignore Cook. You never know. He's going to get some targets. Doesn't mean he's going to get in the box. Allen and CeeDee Lamb are going to be very popular. Eckler is probably going to be the most, but it's warranted. Can't fade him unless he would happen to come out and get hurt. And then
okay, so the reason I didn't see him is because I ran some lineups and he's in the blend.
So what is he?
He's a good value, 2.8, but it doesn't, when it comes up like this, I'll have to start over because it doesn't show the ownership when I get the
we'll keep people in suspense and say the way you can find out is you can go to the Fantasy Sports Logic, and for $1 tonight, you can get access for 7 days. So you have Monday, Thursday, Sunday, all for $1 test driving. And you won't have to believe Brandon. You can look for yourself. And tonight you will also get MLB. And we are rapidly approaching the start of NBA. So RC, thank you. Mucho gracias. I think it's going to be high scoring. I do not see a path to under. Even if the defenses perform, I think they're going to cause some scoring on both sides as well. I think this is the first week that we actually pegged the over correctly. If you're agreeing, are you agreeing it's going to be over?
No, I'm
that
not.
that's a big line.
Yeah.
I'm taking the money line at plus 105 for the Chargers.
Okay. What are you thinking on the total?
I'm going under on the total.
Well, I'm in California, so I can't do the betting, but on a DFS point, Brandon was just saying if he could, he would, but he favors that. We do have a betting site, the Sportstopia.io,
I have the Chargers.
but
I have the Chargers money line. I have the Chargers +2. I also have a little throwaway bet on 1,000 to 1 or +1,000 for Darius Davis anytime touchdown tonight as a prop bet.
nice.
Okay, he is 10% owned in the flex position.
Nice. There you go. Well, 10% of the populace are with you, but that's plus 1,000. Who's giving that? Is it DraftKings or FanDuel book or
DraftKings.
Nice. That's throw $10 on that
And
very
he can
nice.
get it as a return man too, but I think he's got a shot to house one on offense. And Turpin's +800, but that's the Dallas bias of where Turpin's not as playing as many snaps and not as involved as Darius Davis was most recently, but Turpin is known. Darius Davis isn't as known and beloved, but maybe after tonight.
Plus 10,000, huh?
1,000.
1,000.
Huh?
Plus
1,000.
1,000.
1,000?
So 10 to 1.
Nice. I like it. I thought you said 10,000, so that seemed like it was astronomical for somebody getting touches like that, but 1,000's good. Brandon, anything in closing?
No, I'm good today.
Thank you. Thank you, RC. Again, you can find RC at ffmetrics.com. He is a content provider, article-wise and podcast-wise, twice a week. On the podcast, his articles are on sportstopia.io. And he also, if you take advantage of the optimizer, he is one of the 7-player projection partners in the Contrarian Edge optimizer. We appreciate you. Tonight could be the Millie Vanilli takedown.
Do it.
You will catch me now watching the Astros game and in between commercials looking at football tape.
There you go. Sounds great. Thank you, everybody. We're going to end this recording. Thank you.